Today we discuss outbreak of the revolution. So on 5th May 1789 Common Era, Louis XVI organized a meeting of General Estate. General Estate is called the Parliament of French in those days. It is the name of the French Parliament, that is General Estate. So we know that King's treasury had turned to empty. There was no single NP with the king. So he wanted to impose the new taxes, right, to fill the treasury and to meet his needs. So for that, it is essential to take the approval from Parliament, that is Estate General. So on 5th May 1789 Common Era, Louis XVI organized a meeting with the Parliament, that is Estate General, to pass the proposal for new taxes. So what is the procedure of passing an act in the Estate General, right? That we need to understand here. Estate General of the France consisted representatives belonging to three estates. It's a parliament, we call it, had representatives from first estate and from second estate and also from third estate. Okay, here first estate and second estate, they sent 300 representatives each. It means 300 representatives from first estate, another 300 representatives from second estate, whereas from third estate 600 representatives. Altogether 900 representatives were there in Estate General, right? So this was the composition of representatives in a Estate General. Third estate was contained more prosperous and educated members. That means intellectuals were there from third estate. Peasants, artisans, women, they were not allowed into the assembly, that is Estate General. But their problems are sent to the Estate General with letters, that is 40,000 letters showing the problems and demands of peasants, artisans and women were carried by the third estate representatives into the Estate General. And here there is a process in a Estate General while passing an act. Let us look into that process, how an act was passed in a Estate General. Understand? In Estate General, as per the old system, There, each estate had one voter. This is the estate general from first estate and second estate and third estate. They were given each vote. That means 300 representatives of first estate collectively had one vote. One vote. Understand? Similarly, second estate 300 representatives also collectively given one vote. And 600 representatives of third estate also given one vote. That means altogether in estate general there had three votes. How many? Three votes. Understand? One vote of 300 representatives of the first estate. Second vote is from another 300 representatives of the second estate. And third vote of 600 representatives of third estate. So this was a system. In this system, whenever an act was passed, first estate and second estate, they approved the bill passed or the act passed by the king. That means every time an act was passed with two votes of first estate, two votes of first and second estate approving the king's what to call proposal. Understand? Giving permission to the king to impose or to pass a new act. And the third estate where one vote is there of 600 representatives. One vote of 600 representatives was against to the king proposal. It means that in the state general, every time two votes, what to call supporting the king, understand, supporting the king, and one vote against the what king. This one vote from third estate. So here two votes have come for the king, so that majority of the representatives from a state general agreed to the proposal of the king. So every time the king succeeded in the parliament, that is a state general. Understand? So by this 1789, as the new middle class emerged at the middle of the 18th century, this middle class consisted of intellectuals like lawyers, teachers, doctors, and other professionals. They wanted that voting should be done as a whole assembly instead of the old trend, that what I said just now, that is the old trend. Instead of going to the old trend, voting should be done in the estate general as assembly whole. Okay, what in by assembly whole? How many representatives were there in assembly? 900 representatives. 300 from first estate, another 300 from second estate, 600 from what to call a third estate. Sorry, altogether 1200 representatives, right? So 1200 representatives should give vote individually. That means instead of taking as three votes as assembly whole, take considering 1200 votes from assembly as a whole. That means 1200 votes should be considered from assembly, not three oaths which they followed earlier. Understand? So here the third estate representatives, they demanded assembly should vote as a whole to the act where the king is uh, what to call passed. The king passed the king passed one proposal for raising the new taxes, right? There assembly should be voted completely. That means each member of the assembly should be given one vote. Understand? So this is the what a new what to call principle which is relating to the democracy. In democracy we find every individual is given equal freedom, equal opportunity, right? In democracy we find all the people are given right to vote equally. Everyone is given right to vote, and each person's vote value is one. That means one man, one vote, and its value also one. This is the what equality. Understand? So here, this is the principle for which third estate members stood up. The third estate members demanded that assembly should go for passing an act by considering to the democratic principle, that is each member should be voted as a assembly whole. Understand? That was the what democratic principle which is suggested by the philosophers Rousseau in his book Social Contract. Okay, Jean Jacques Rousseau, he proposed this principle in his book Social Contract. What is a social contract? What is there in that book? Social contract says government is the agreement between people and their representatives. Understand? It is an agreement. Government is agreement between people and representatives that we discussed earlier, right? So social contract, it's a contract, that is an agreement between the people and their representatives, that is the government. Understand? So government should work according to the agreement between people and their representatives. Understand? So what is the demand of the people of third estate? That each individual should be given one vote. Understand? And king was not ready for this new democratic based principle. Understand? So king rejected this new proposal through which to pass the proposal of the king. Understand? Because in this new proposal the king will not get success. Understand? So what happened here? King rejected the proposal. Understand? As the king rejected the proposal, third estate representatives, 600 representatives of third estate, they walked out of the estate general, showing their protest against to the king's opinion and the king's view. And these third estate representatives, they gathered in the tennis court. Where? In the tennis court. Understand? On what to call 28th June 1789 common era. There is a tennis court in front of the estate general. Understand? This is a estate general, ES. Understand? In front of the estate general there is a tennis court. What that? tennis court, understand, which is an indoor stadium, understand. So in this tennis court, there is 600 representatives. How many? 600 representatives of third estate. They gathered in the tennis court on 20th June 1789 after walking out from the estate general, understand. That is the indoor tennis court which is at the grounds of Versailles Palace. This estate general also a big hall in Versailles, understand. Versailles is a big palace, right? In that palace there is a big conference hall, and that was allotted for a state general, right? And in front of this Versailles Palace there is a tennis court. In that tennis court, these representatives of a third estate gathered under the leadership of Mirabeau, Abesiais, and what to call Bailey. These were the leaders of third estate representatives. Under their leadership, third estate representatives gathered at a tennis court on 20th June 1789, Common Era, and there they gathered for preparing a new constitution for the French. They took oath, that means they promised they should not move out of that place till the preparing of the constitution had completed. That means they wanted to prepare, that is, they wanted to draft a new constitution for France. They aimed to draft the new constitution which would limit the powers of the monarch, that is the King Louis XVI. Okay, so as they took promise there, that conference in the tennis court, it is famously it is known uh, on famous, that is a tennis court oath. They took oath there, that is promise, understand. They sworn that to prepare, to draft a constitution which would limit the powers of the king, understand. So, and they also mentioned that all the representatives of the third assembly declaring to themselves that they are the representatives of whole France, understand. These third estate representatives declared that they were the representatives of whole French nation. That means on behalf of the French people, these third estate representatives working to prepare, to draft the new constitution, right? It means that whatever the constitution is produced there at a tennis court, it would be the constitution prepared from whole French nation, understand. So for that, they themselves declared that they were the representatives of whole French nation, understand. That was a first resolution they passed on 20th June at a tennis court, understand. And that people, that 300 representatives or 600 representatives of third estate called themselves as National Assembly, understand. Here onwards, French Parliament is called National Assembly. Earlier, it was called Estate General, right? After this 20th June 1789, National Assembly turned the whole parliament representing to the French nation. Okay, so from 28th June 1789, 600 representatives of third estate were busy in drafting the what constitution, okay, at Versailles, understand. And it was the winter season. What was it is? It was the winter season, extreme winter, very cold in France. Due to the extreme winter, there the crops failed. They did not get crops into the hand. Many of the crops were damaged by the extreme winter. So there was a chaos, disturbance in the whole France. Farmers did not get crops into the hand, and those crops were damaged, and that led to the rise in the prices of the bread. Bread prices increased and reached to the what sky. The bread price was very high in the market. Understand? Due to the lack of raw material for making the bread, bakers who make bread from the flour, they took the advantage of this situation, and whatever the raw material and the bread they had in their bakeries, that they blocked to increase the price further to the bread. Understand? It is called black marketing, we call it. Understand? So they hold it that bread not supplying to the what people who were waiting in front of the bakery, what to call it, to get the what bread. Understand? As we are taking here food, that is rice. French people's food item is what bread. So there the bakers made the water. Many people who were in a queue in front of the bakery for waiting for bread. There was no single piece of bread with the people. Many people were hungry due to the shortage of bread. Understand? Many of the women, that is mothers, they were angry on this incident and stand on this situation. Okay, they were standing in a queue in front of the bakery for long hours. For what? Long hours. After waiting for long hours, there they got angry. So this angered woman, they entered forcefully into the bakery. Understand? They entered into the bakery forcefully. Understand? And this was the what an act of the rebellion by the people. See how long the people will wait for a bread in front of the bakery when they were hungry, and from that they got angry. Understand? So here the king consider it is a rebellion against him. At the same time, king ordered what to call his army to move into the parish and charge on the women who were standing in front of the bakery and entered into the shop forcefully to get the bread to fulfill the stomach of their children. Understand? So with this incident, the woman got angry, and there on 14th July, this angered woman entered in Bastille. Bastille is a jail in France, which is a symbol of a monarchy. Understand? Prisoners were imprisoned in the Bastille jail. Okay, this was the symbol of the absolute power of a monarch. That is, it is a symbol of a monarchy. So this Bastille jail was completely destroyed by the hanged women on 14th July. Understand? And this on this 14th July, as they succeeded overthrowing the king's monarchical rule, they succeeded in this one. So every year, French people celebrate 14th July as their national day. How do we celebrate 15th August as Independence Day? French people celebrate French people celebrate 14th July as a national day for France. Understand? So looking to this revolt of the people, Louis XVI, who was the king of the France, so king felt that he may not get success on the people who were anger on the king's action, that is allowing the what army to uh, make lathi charge on them. Understand? So finally, on 4th August, the king on what you call this Louis XVI finally what recognized the National Assembly, accepted that National Assembly consisting of representatives of 600 of third estate as the parliament for what to call French, and also Constituent Assembly. National Assembly also acted here as a Constituent Assembly for preparing the constitution. Understand? So he accepted that National Assembly as a parliament and Constituent Assembly for drafting the constitution. Whatever the constitution drafted by National Assembly accepted by the what Louis XVI, and he recognized that from 4th August 1789, from 4th August 1789, their king accepted that his powers, what that his powers would be limited by the constitution. Look at this point. The powers of the kings now limited. Earlier, he enjoyed absolute power. Right? The king believed in the divine right theory of divine right theory, which says that the powers of the kings are given by God. So no one should question to the king, and king was not answerable to anyone. Right? This was called divine right theory. Understand? And that was ended here. Louis XVI also accepted here that the parliament would be supreme, that is constitution. 4th August 1789, that the king accepted it is the National Assembly, and this assembly passed a new act that is banning the feudal system, that is what you call landlordism. Second estate people, that is the nobles, aristocrats, they had huge lands in their hands. They collected taxes from third estate. So this third estate representatives passed an act. According to that act, taxes of the feudal lords, taxes of the feudal lords, and other obligations. What these third estate people, especially peasants, worked in the houses of the landlords. They worked for the feudal lords in their army, right? And they worked in the fields of the feudal lords for free of cost. They paid taxes to the feudal lords. All those were banned. Understand? That means there is no right to the landlords to impose taxes and take the services of the third estate people free of cost, according to the new law passed by the National Assembly on 4th August 1789. Okay, and one more act also passed by this National Assembly, that the clergy, that means church officials, also not allowed to impose taxes on the peasant. Okay, it also banned the special privileges given to them. What is by special privileges? That first estate, second estate were exempted on paying the taxes. First special privilege. Second privilege is that the king given some kind of permission to these first estate and second estate to impose their personal taxes on the third estate, right? These are the special privileges also banned. That means third first second first estate consisting of the clergy, they were forced to give up, that means to remove, to leave their special privileges, understand? So clergy was not allowed to impose taxes on the third estate people. That is also one act passed by the National Assembly, understand? Tithes were also banned. Tithes, understand? What is tithes? 1/10 part of the income earned by the people should be paid to the church, right? That was banned, understand? Tithes were banned. Then clergy were not allowed to impose taxes. Feudal system was banned. Feudal lords were not allowed to collect taxes on the to collect taxes from the third estate people, understand? This is what success of the what parliament and third estate people in the French, understand? In this way, what to call they succeeded that limiting the powers of the what king, understand here?